Hey, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. This is Chad from Ascension Worship, coming to you from the City Worship Studio. This week we've got 3 easy tips to level your mix.
Hey, what do you say? Yes, it's that time again. It's Tech Tuesday.
So if you are new to audio, or if you're trying to get some volunteers trained up, or if you just need a recap, before you start really getting into EQ and compression, gating, all those really cool things that make a great mix, you first need to learn how to just use some faders and just level out the basics, and also to learn to control those things throughout the song and throughout the set, rather than trying to do set it and forget it like a lot of guys will try to do. So if you're not quite sure what to shoot for, we've come up with 3 tips to get you started. Again, this is to set your levels at the beginning of rehearsal, and then also for you to think about between and during each song, because these things will change as you go. So we're going to try and make this really fast so that we can get into some audio examples. So step number 1 is to define the vocal. So maybe you are coming off of last week's mix, or you've just, kind of thrown things together while you're doing sound check. Well, now it's time to actually make sure that your mix is working together, and you usually want to start with your vocal so that you can make sure that it's going to be loud enough to work with and to help promote congregational worship, but not so loud that you're getting into a loudness war trying to push everything else up with it, and then you're going to have to push the vocal up more and more and more. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of our faders back a little bit, put our vocal up, and then start there. Now, how do you set the level for that? Where do you go for? Well, in this particular video, we're going to leave a little bit of headroom, and we're going to start at -5, understanding that we can go as high as -5 to about 0 before we start getting a little bit too loud. Now, for your room, what that actually means is, how loud is it to where, as an individual, I can come in and I can feel like I'm not sticking out when I'm singing because the worship leader is just a little bit louder than I am as an individual. So that's usually where I want you to shoot for with this. Don't worry too much about numbers, but that's what you want to go for. So once you've defined the vocal, which is step 1, step 2 is to define the beat. Well, first of all, what is the beat? The beat is whatever you're going to listen to that will let you know where to clap. So this is important if you, again, are trying to promote congregational worship. We want to get people involved in the worship. So if we got some upbeat songs, we want people clapping, we need to know what needs to be in the mix for them to do that. If you have a full band with a drum kit, it's usually going to be your kick drum and your snare drum. But maybe you have a smaller band, or maybe the song doesn't start with drums, so it might be your acoustic guitar or your keyboard or an electric guitar. So again, this can change from song to song, so you need to know what the beat is and make sure that it's loud enough to where it's kind of alongside with your lead vocal, but a little bit below. But it's enough to where, again, if you get a whole room of people clapping, they're going to feel comfortable doing so, and it's not going to be so quiet that they're getting off beat and then throwing the band off, which is a bad thing. So we've defined the vocal, put that up top. We've brought the beat just about alongside of it so that we can get people involved. And then the third step is we're going to define the key. And so this is basically everything else, but these are all the melodic elements that are going to help support the vocal and basically tell people subliminally how to sing along with the vocals. So you've got your bass guitar, which is going to be your fundamental, the low notes that define the chords that we're playing. You've got the things that make chords, so your electric guitars, your acoustic guitars, your keys, and then you got all your lead instruments, which again are like electric guitars, your tracks, those kinds of things. Now, these we're going to bring in, but we're going to leave enough room to where the vocal can still sit on top of here. Now with the beat, this is not as difficult because it's a very transient, quick, it's there and it's gone hits. But with the key, all these instruments, they are going to be, a lot of them, in the same frequency range as the vocals. So you have to make sure the vocal still sits out on top, And sometimes you're going to have to do a little seesaw action. So maybe at a point where the vocal isn't happening, then you can push some of these elements up, like the electric guitars. But then once the vocal comes back in, you're going to want to switch back. So always make sure the vocal's on top, but this is going to sit just kind of underneath it a little bit. Now, once you've thrown all these elements together, you might find that you need a little bit more vocal. Well, that's why we started with some headroom. So don't start with your vocal all the way at the top. Leave a little bit of room, because once you throw in all these elements, you might find you need a little bit more vocal, and you want to prepare for that early on. So again, real quick recap. 1, define the vocal. Make sure it's towards the top, but leave a little bit of headroom. 2, define the beat. So kick, snare, acoustic guitar, whatever people are going to clap to, bring that about alongside to the vocal. Step 3 is define the key. So all the other elements that support the vocal, bring them in, but have them be beneath the vocal at least most of the time. So if you do these 3 things and you keep close attention to them throughout the set, especially in between songs, that's a very good spot to start. And then EQ and compression, all those things are only going to help support that a little bit more. So I have an audio example here. Let's take a look at it and we're going to try it. All right. So here we have a really basic 16 channel live mix I put together for you. This is live, so don't judge anybody for their performance or tone. So we've got a vocal over here, and then just so you can read what I've got overheads, drums left, drums right, kick, snare, bottom, tom 1, tom 2, bass, guitars. This is a pair of guitars that are the same one but different amps, and then a second guitar, an acoustic guitar, and then finally tracks left and right. So again, we're going to start with our vocal. We're going to push it up to around -5, and then we're going to bring in the other elements around that, starting with our beat and then ending with everything else. And then if we need to, we can push the vocal up a little bit more. There's our vocal.
Your name, Jesus, we love it. Your name, there's none above it. Your name in all the earth. Every knee bow down before you. Every heart say we adore you. Your name.
We're not hearing toms yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw them in. So I have them.
Sing it out, sing it loud.
All right, let's throw in our key, start with our bass.
Stop until the lost are found. Heaven hear the sound. Sing it out, yeah, sing it loud.
Make sure to keep the vocal on top.
Stop until the lost are found. Heaven hear the sound. You sing your name, Jesus, we love it. Your name, there's none above it. Your name in all the earth. Every knee bow down before you. Every heart say we adore you. Your name in all the earth.
Give the vocal a little bit more.
Sing it out. Stop until the lost are found. Heaven hear the sound. Sing it out, yeah, sing it loud. We won't stop until the lost are found. Heaven hear the sound. You sing your name, Jesus, we love it. Your name, there's none above it. Your name in all the earth. Every knee
So hopefully that gives you a good point to start at. If you notice when I was doing that, some of the elements, such as like the electric guitar, I was having to bring up and bring down depending on the section. And that's what you really want to do, is kind of keep an eye on where it is in relationship to the vocal. And so we're always keeping the vocal out on top, but some of those elements are going to go up and down, and you're going to do an active mix and try and keep those things moving. Bring out the leads when they happen, but make sure the vocal still stays on top. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment on our YouTube page below, or you can email me at TechTuesday@ascensionworship.com. Until next time, have a great week. Again, this is Chad from Ascension Worship. I hope this has been helpful for you and your team. Come back here every Tuesday for new information.